Everyone, Amber here from So Majestic. Thank you so much for joining me. Today is another sewing marathon presented by the Marathon Society. I'm so excited. Today we're sewing up the Chameleon bag by Oh Sew Gecko, and it is perfectly named because there's so many options. There is like squares or rectangles. You could do a solid front. There's multiple side pocket options. There is a recessed zipper option. I did the short handles, but you could also do a crossbody. So there's so many ways to complete this bag. Thank you so much, Salisa, for allowing us to use your pattern. This was my first Oh Sew Gecko pattern, and I am going to be making so many more. This bag I decided to make and keep for myself. I use cotton woven for the top and cork for the bottom. So all the green that you see is cork. I do have purse feet, and I chose to do the recessed zipper option. And then inside, I also added the slip pocket. There's an option for an exterior zipper pocket. Because I use cotton woven, I decided not to include that. And instead, I just did some quilting and used foam as the interior to give it a little bit of that sturdiness. So I absolutely love how it came out. I hope you're enjoying the marathon. If you enjoyed my video, I would love if you give me a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. Appreciate it so much. In the description, I'm going to have a link to Oh Sew Gecko's website as well as to the pattern. And she has her own tutorial for this as well. And I'll also put a link for all the other sewists that are participating in the marathon today. So thank you again, Lisa, for allowing us to feature your pattern, and I hope you guys enjoy. Here I have all my pieces laid out that I will be using. I am using cork for the base and the bottom. I chose to do the two rectangles option. So this will be the upper part of the side of the bag. The cork will be the lower. And I have also chosen to add in the larger side pockets, do them out of cork. All of the cotton woven I have interfaced with Geeky Fuse Cotton Soft. I have not put anything on the cork because I plan on using the foam in the back as stabilizer. The top one in the right is going to be the linings and the lining gusset. I have the double-sided handles here. This is for the recessed pockets, the recessed zipper. The cork is going to go around on the inside, and the cork over there is also going to be for the zipper flaps. I'm not putting an exterior pocket. I am doing an interior slip pocket with a cork overlay, and then I have my tabs for the handle also made out of cork. So like I said, the cork is on interface. The cotton woven has one layer of Geeky Fuse Cotton Soft, and I will be using the foam as interfacing. So as far as hardware, I have a size 5 zipper tape that has some iridescence to it, and I'm going to use this size 5 parrot pull that we have available in our shop. I have 4 square rings. I have a pack of strap ends here. I haven't taken them out just so I don't lose the little screws. I have a zipper end cap that I'm going to use instead of making a zipper tab. I have purse feet, and all of this hardware and pulls are located in our store. And then I have some rivets from Amazon that I have linked that I'm also going to use. Okay, so for supplies, I have plenty of clips. I have my Tex 35 thread from Wizardry Stitchery in Dusty Rose. I have some base coat and a roller, both from Mojo Sews. I'm using a 9014 Microtex needle. I have a little screwdriver for the purse feet and strap ends and zipper end, some snips, a seam ripper stiletto combo, a chalk marking pen and a silver marking pen, some double-sided tape, a ruler, and a hand hole punch. If I use anything else, I'll let you know as we go along. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I am prepping some of my cork so I do not have to wait until later. These are the 2 recessed zipper panels that we're going to fold in half. And then I have my 4 strap connectors and a skinny piece that I cut. This is not in the pattern, but I'm going to use it for the slip pocket. So cork, you can leave it raw edge, but cork comes from a tree, and on the back there is like a poly woven, or it could be cotton woven. So that means that it could sometimes fray. So to prevent that, I have some Mojo Sew's base coat here, and I just bought a new roller from her as well. She also has the little pens. I really like the roller, so I'm going to use that because I haven't got a chance to really practice with the pen yet. And you can take a lighter and just singe off any hairs or little threads, not hairs, but like there's one right here. But you just want to be very mindful. Oh, I need to get a better light here. But you want to be very mindful because cork can burn. It's wood. So after you have gone all the way around, we are just putting a slight coat all the way around the edges. And I'm going to go all the way around the recessed zipper panels, all of the strap ends, and that long strip for the slip pocket. And this is so that nothing frays. You could... Alright, so now I'm working with my pattern piece 1 and 2s. I chose the rectangle option for the outer, so you might have squares or a combination of squares and rectangles. I did 2 rectangles. So we are going to start with our pattern piece 1 up top and our 2 on the bottom. If you have directional fabric, you want to make sure that it is facing up in the correct direction. And then you are going to fold them right sides together. And I am just lining up the edges here, and I will clip into place. And I do have some interfacing on the back of the cotton. We are going to attach stabilizer after. I'm using foam. You could do something sturdier like Decoville or whatnot. But for right now, we're not adding that. We're just sewing these sides together. And I'm just turning it around so I can see it a little bit better. It's easier for me to clip it straight. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing for the second side. And then I'm going to bring them both to the machine and sew along the top at the given seam allowance in the pattern. Okay, and while I'm still at the machine, I have just stitched the top panels together. But now we are going to open them up, and we are going to butterfly this seam open. So if you are using materials that you can press, go ahead and give them a press. You could use some double-sided tape here to keep them open. I'm just going to finger press them open, and then on the top side, I'm going to top stitch on both the right and the left-hand side of the seam here. Alright, so I have just attached my 2 rectangle pieces and have top stitched on both sides. So the back, the seam is butterflied open. So now if you are going to attach a stabilizer, which is pattern piece 18, you can do that now. If you're using Decoville, you want to flip it over and fuse or fusible fleece. I am choosing to use foam. This is actually a Pellon product. It's called Naked Foam. And you can see that I have a scrap here from the fusible foam. This has like what they call tricot, or like a layer over it. And this does not. So it's the same foam on the inside. It just doesn't have that smooth, silky texture. And I actually found that this is thinner, so sews better on my machine. People have, their own preferences, but it might be worth something to try. And this type of foam is like a third of the price. So if we look at the back of our pattern piece, you can see that the foam is much shorter. There is a measurement from the bottom that it is supposed to be shorter down here. And that's because this is going to be part of our base and we have another piece of foam. But I actually cut mine even a little bit shorter because I'm sewing on a domestic. So not only do I want to leave it out of my seam allowance at the top, But once we turn the bag and we top stitch, I want to make sure this is not getting caught in my top stitch, because even though my machine will go through quite a few layers, it will get hung up a little bit with even stitches. So I want to quilt my foam, so I'm going to use a chalk pencil, and I have put about a 2-inch spacing between each, and I'm putting my foam on with the double-sided tape, and then I'm going back and forth just quilting the foam on to hold it. Alright, so I have just finished stitching out the quilting, and you can see there's a little bit of chalk line still left, but that will come out when I wipe it down with water or a baby wipe. I'm really happy with how this looks. This is what it looked like from the back side. So you can see I have my foam quilted in, so it's not going to move. If you look all the way around, it's out of my seam allowance, both on the top and on the this side's the top, and then that extra wide on the bottom as given in the pattern. So I'm going to set these aside. The next step in the pattern would be if you are putting in an exterior zipper pocket, it would go in like the top up here. I am not adding an exterior zipper pocket, so the next step for us in my tutorial is going to be the interior slip pocket. So I'm going to grab those pieces and then come back. All right, so I have my 2 slip pocket pieces here. I have one with my parrots and then one with the rainbows. So we are going to put them right sides together. Both of these are quilting cotton. I have interfaced both of them. And so we are going to clip around the top and the sides, and we're going to sew all the way around, leaving a turning hole in the bottom. So I like to put like 2 clips to remind myself to leave that open. All right, so we have just sewed our slip pocket with the turning hole in the bottom, and I'm going to trim down my seam allowance and also cut at the edges at a diagonal. That will help us when we turn it right side facing out. So I realized that I didn't hit record but I have turned this completely. The opening's tucked up in the bottom. If you use cotton, definitely give it a press. But what I was saying is I had an extra piece of cork. It was just a skinny strip about 3/4 of an inch wide. I usually like to do a little bit wider, but this is all I had left. So I am going to put that on the top and just give it a top stitch. It just adds like a little bit of an accent to it. This is not part of the pattern. All right, so I have just added the cork overlay on the top, and I'm pretty happy with how it looks. I think it looks nice to bring a little bit of an accent of the cork from the exterior. So now we need to attach our slip pocket to our lining. So I have already marked the center of my lining on the bottom and the top and drew a line across where my pocket needs to go. It's all in chalk, so it will wipe off. And I have also drew a center line down here, but it's very hard to see because of the white chalk. So I'm just lining up my center point with the center of the lining here. And if you need to, you can draw a straight line up. I can still see the crease. It's probably not visible on the camera, but I can still see a little bit of it. So what I'm doing is I'm just lining my pocket up along the bottom, and you could take a ruler and measure on each side, make sure that it is the same distance. And I have some regular pins here because I am using cotton woven, so I can just pin through. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm pinning my pocket in place, so hopefully it does not move. And I am just going to double check this after I pin it because it's easy for things to slip up. And so once I double check my measurements, make sure everything is straight, I am going to take this to the machine. I'm going to start at the right hand side, back stitch very well at the top, come down, go all the way across the bottom. That's going to close up our turning hole, and then come back up the other side, making sure to backstitch really well. Because this is a pocket, it is going to get open, so it will be pulled on. So you want to make sure it's very secure. All right, so here I have just attached our interior slip pocket. I'm really happy with how it came out. This is what the backside looks like. And so now I'm going to set it aside because we are going to work on our exterior side gussets and our exterior side pockets. Okay, I have grabbed a few things. I have my exterior side gussets. For this, I chose to use the cotton woven, and I am backing it again with the foam. So these have two options for pockets. I chose the large pocket only. So when we're all said and done, it's going to sit on top of the side like this. There is an option for a smaller slip pocket here. I did not do that. So I'm going to set this to the side because what I want to do first is I have my stabilizer. So it's going to be similar to what we did for our main exterior panels. I am again going to center this, and I am going to draw my quilt lines in and do the quilting on the exterior side first. And that way the quilting lines will attach my foam and it will match the main panels. So again, all right, so I have just attached the foam by quilting. So again, these are our exterior side gusset panels. And now we are making our large pockets. Like I said, I'm not doing the small, just the large. So I have my lining and my exterior cut mirrored. So we are just lining up the tops and the bottom. And we are going to clip them into place. And we are going to sew along that top diagonal line and then along this bottom straight edge at the given seam allowance. We're not sewing the sides right now. And I'm going to clip my other panel here, or side pocket panel, and do the same exact thing. Okay, and while I'm at the machine, I have just sewed along the top and the bottom of these pockets with the sides open. So we are just going to turn them so they are right side facing out. And if you're using a material that can be pressed, you can go ahead and do that. I'm just going to kind of flatten them out with my hand. But then I'm going to top stitch along this diagonal on each of them. So I have just finished sewing the large pockets, sewed them right side together, flipped them out at the machine, and then top stitch along the top. So now we are going to attach them to our side panels. I already have a line marked across the bottom that's given in the pattern, and we are going to line them both up on that line. And I'm going to clip them in place and take it to the machine and stitch along all three sides, just a basting stitch to hold it in place. I was thinking, okay, so I have just base stitched around all three sides of the pocket. Top part is still open, and I'm going to set these to the side. Now you're going to need your zipper tape, your zipper pull, and then if you are doing the recessed zipper, you might have 4 shorter panels or 2 longer. So I have the 2 longer. The first thing that I did is on the back of these panels, there's measurements given, and she has you mark them after you already fold them in half. And I did them now. So I measured in from the short size, the distance given, and this long side is not given in the pattern. Something that I did different is on the zipper tape, she has you measure in to a certain distance that we're going to line up with the edge. So instead of putting it on the zipper tape where I'm worried that it might be seen, I just measured it into the actual recessed zipper cork pieces. So I'll show you a little bit more what I mean by that later. I did it for both because if you're doing the long pieces, you are folding them in half, and we're going to take them to the machine and just top stitch along this already folded edge down here. If you are using for smaller pieces, the directions are a little bit different because you're not folding it. So I'm going to do the second part off camera. The other thing that I'm doing is I have my zipper tape and I have the measurements down. We are opening this up and folding down at that little measurement. And so the zipper tape is wrong sides together. So I kind of like to pinch it in place. And then you pull, the zipper teeth are going to kind of come up naturally. It's a pretty short measurement, so it's a little bit hard. You might have to fiddle a bit with it. And I'm going to clip this in place. We're going to do the same thing for the other side. And this side is a little bit easier for me. So wrong sides together, folded back, and then the zipper teeth are just going to nicely sit across the top. And I'm going to take this to the machine and tack those into place. On the back, you can see it kind of makes a little triangle here. So what I do is I put my needle down, making sure I catch that triangle first. Because if you put your presser foot and take off this clip without your needle in there, they could come unraveled. The other thing is I haven't put my pull on yet. I will do that after, just to make it easier when I'm putting all these together. So I'm going to take this to the machine, tack these in place, and do a top stitch across that folded edge of each side of these cork pieces for the recessed zipper. All right, so I have just basted down the folded edges and basted my zipper teeth to the sides. There's two things that I should mention, that if you are using the recessed zipper, this method requires it to be raw edged. So you cannot make this in this method with anything that's going to fray. So you definitely want like a vinyl, cork, or leather for this. And the other thing is you should seal the edges. And I did that in the beginning when I was showing using the base coat from Mojo Sews, that these are already sealed, so they're ready to go. So now our next step is I have the zipper. Again, I'm putting the pull on after. It's just going to make it easier to sew. You can do that now or later. But if you do it now, just make sure when we get there, you're going to move it out of the way. So what we're going to do is we've already made the measurement in from the side here. So if we open this up, I'm going to put some double-sided tape along this line that I drew. Now, in the instructions, you should draw that on the zipper tape itself. And then she has you, so we're going to line up our teeth with that measurement in, and then we are going to put our zipper, what you would do is line up the measurement on the top. You'd pinch it to that line on the zipper. But if you're not really accurate with just either drawing that line on the zipper or little dots, it might be seen. So that's why I put it on the inside instead. And so I'm just going to kind of use some double-sided tape to hold it in place and basically just kind of reverse the instructions. So instead of it being on the zipper tape itself, it is going to be on this cork, and I am just going to line up the edge. With the double-sided tape here, it is clear, so I can still see my marking. And I'm trying to figure out what the best way. Okay, so I'm putting my teeth, lining my teeth up with that mark at the bottom, and this long edge of my zipper tape with that line. And that double-sided tape is just going to hold it in place. And I put it just barely over the line. So that means it's not going to be in my stitch line. Okay, so now what we're going to do is bring this to the machine and you are going to top stitch. I'm going to start at one side, come down the short edge, go all the way down the long edge. I'm probably going to hand crank over these teeth because it might get stuck there. You might need a hump jumper, and then come down and stop at this other side here. So that's all. Okay, so I have just top stitched all the way around. Here you can see a little bit, it's a little funny because where my presser foot came down, so it's not quite as straight over here, but that's okay. And this is what it looks like from the back. If you have anything like from the front side where you see your back, you want to come and trim that because this is going to be left raw edged. So if you want to edge coat this, you could edge coat it to blend in. I'm not going to because it's so thin right now. I don't think it's as big of a deal, but that is an option. So I'm going to repeat the same exact process for the other side, and then I'll come back to show you putting on our zipper and our zipper tab. All right, so I have just top stitched around the second side. So the other thing, you want to make sure that they are lined up equally on the edge, which they are. The only thing is mine, this side kind of like shifted a little bit, so you can see it doesn't lay perfectly flat, but when we sew this in, it's not going to be a problem. So two things that we're going to do now is the first, I'm going to add my zipper pull. If you haven't already, I just found that it's easier because otherwise you have to move your pull out of the way as you're top stitching so you don't get that bump. And I just do it by my hands, starting with the right side, then adding the left. Took a lot of time and practice to get this down, but once you do, it works out fairly well. Okay, and then you want to make sure that your end is not fraying. So if you're using a nylon zipper, you could just melt that down. And so now in the pattern, they give you a piece where you can make your own zipper tab. I have these zipper ends in the shop, and I just have the screw inside already because it just holds it so I didn't lose it. So how I install these is I fold each side in underneath. So if we're looking from the back, kind of making like the rectangle. So folding them in to where that zipper is. And then you could put some glue in here if you want. I've never had a problem with them, so I normally don't. And this is like, we have smaller zipper zipper ends and larger. This is a larger size. And once that is folded, it will slide all the way in. You could feel it. If you need to fold it a little bit more to make it skinnier, some people probably even trim down their zipper, but I find folding it gives more for that screw to attach to. And so I just screw this in. You could put some Loctite or again super glue or something on your screw to hold it in. I'm not going to. I love these magnetic screwdrivers. They work so good. I got it at Micro Center, and I am just using that to install. And because the holes are not pre-cut or anything, you could feel it giving some resistance as it is going through that zipper. So again, now from the front, instead of the tab, we just have this, metallic zipper end that matches. And I just really love the look of it. And it will keep that pull from coming off. And then where we have it curved up top, it can't go past those curved teeth. All right, so I'm gonna set this to the side because we're gonna move on to the next step. All right, so now we need a few different pieces. We need our recessed zipper panel. We need our two lining panels. And then if you're doing the recessed lining, you should have pieces that go up top. And that's these cork accent pieces that I'm using. So if you're using the recessed zipper panel, you want to make sure it's going to matter which lining piece you use. Because if I'm opening my bag and my zipper panel is attached, I want to make sure when I open my zipper, I see my slip pocket on the back side. So if you didn't add a zip pocket or it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter what lining you grab. But if I'm opening my zipper left to right, I want to see my slip pocket. So I have marked the centers of everything. There is a little silver mark. So I want my lining panel right side up. I want my zipper, recess zipper, also right side up. So this way you can see the teeth. And we're basically making like a zipper sandwich, except it's a recess zipper sandwich. So now on these accent pieces, I have also marked the centers, and we're going to put them right side facing down. So you could base this in place if you want. I'm just going to do all 3 steps at once. So I am lining up the centers of essentially all 3 pieces. And then I'm going to clip along the rest. And I'm actually just going to flip it around so you can see it on camera a little bit better. You are lining up the entire edge. I'm using quite a few clips because this could be a little bit thick depending on the material you used. And I don't want it to slip, especially because I'm not basting it into place. And then so once you have it clipped, you are going to sew along that clipped edge at the given seam allowance. Make sure that you are backstitching in the beginning and the end. And then once you do that, you are going to fold this open, and I am going to top stitch on this outer cork piece. So I am going to do both of that at the machine. All right, so this is what our first lining looks like with the recess zipper attached. You can see that if we pull it out, it looks like this. My zipper is opening left to right. So inside or underneath, I have the slip pocket. On the back, I have pushed the seam allowance up and top stitched. So that is this here. So now we're going to repeat the same exact process for the other side. It's going to be a little bit, maybe a little bit tricky because now you can see we have this other lining attached, but it's the same process. Your lining piece, lining up your centers, making that sandwich, clipping, sewing, and then opening it and top stitching. So I'm going to do the rest of this side off camera because it's the same exact step. All right, so we have just added the recess zipper and top stitch on both sides. So now your lining pieces are kind of attached at the top. So what we're going to do next is we are going to line up the bottom here. And in the pattern, she gives you a mark to measure into on each side. I didn't mark it just because what we're going to do is we're going to stitch in a little bit, back stitch here, leave an opening to turn through, and then continue stitching down on this side here. So I'm going to do that and take it to the machine, given seam allowance, regular small stitch, and then make sure you're leaving that turning hole in the beginning, or in the middle, sorry. And you want to make sure that you're leaving it wide enough that we will be able to turn our whole bag through. All right, so I have just stitched the bottom, leaving that turning gap. Now you're going to need your 2 lining side panels. And if you are like me, you have that overlay for the top. If you did not do a recess zipper, you're not doing this part. So just like what we did with the main lining, we are going to put these right sides together and stitch across the top. The only difference is that when we open these, instead of pushing the seam up, we're going to butterfly it open. So we're going to fold them, the lining part to the lining and the cork side to the cork. And you can top stitch on both sides or either side. And I'm just going to top stitch on the top so it matches my other lining. And so I'm going to take these to the machine and I'm going to do both of those steps at once. So again, you're going to stitch them on at the regular given seam allowance, then open it up, open your seams up and top stitch only through the top or only through the bottom. Okay, so I have just attached these and I top stitch through the top only. The back, the seam is butterflied open. You could probably do a top stitch along here if you'd like to keep that other side down. I'm just going to leave it like that and make sure when I clip them that it is folded open. Now on the back side, well, I marked the center on the front of each of these side pieces, and on the back, there's 2 measurements given in from each side. And so I did them already because now what we need to do is I'm opening up the zipper to make it easier. We need our main lining, and we are going to put it so our lining is facing up. And again, I'm butterflying this seam open on the bottom. It will just make it easier in the long run. And so I'm taking one of these pattern pieces, and where my center mark is, I'm putting it right side facing down, lining up that center mark to the center seam of our main lining. And I'm going to clip that there first so it doesn't move. And then I'm going to line up the remaining edge and clip it along. And it might be a little bit funky because it doesn't open up fully because of the recessed zipper. So just maneuver it as best you can to get it where you need. And then I'm going to clip this side. And so now what we're going to do is we are going to take this to the machine, and we are going to sew from that first mark to the second mark, back stitching at the beginning and the end. We're not going all the way to the edges. So from one mark to the next, back stitching at the beginning and the end. And I'm actually going to do that for both sides before I come back. All right, so I realized that I didn't hit record for the time lapse, but you can see that I have stitched from one line to the next, and I've done that for both sides of my lining. So now what I need to do is I'm going to try to straighten it as best I can because I need to peel up this side panel, and I'm just snipping into that bottom main lining along that mark. So I just lined up my scissors underneath that mark and have snipped in. You do not want to snip into your stitches. So be very, very mindful of that. I'm getting as close as possible without clipping my stitches. Because now what we're going to do is I'm taking that side piece, I'm lining up the top to the main panel, and they should line up perfectly. I'm going to line up the bottom edge of the cork here with the bottom edge of the cork on the other side. And this is why we had butterflied the seams open on the side panels, so that way it doesn't get so thick. If all your seams were going up, it would make it very thick right there. And especially if you're using vinyl, it might be a little bit complicated. So now I'm just kind of tugging it straight with my finger. It's like I said, with that recessed zipper, it's not completely open. So, or it is completely open, but you can't separate it completely. So now I'm clipping all the way down. Make sure you just play around with it until you can get it clipped and use as many clips as you need. Because now I'm going to take this to the machine and I'm going to stitch along this side panel here, stopping at that line that I drew. So where I backstitched here, when I come down the side, I'm going to stop and backstitch at that same end point. And I'm going to do that for all 4 sides. So I'm starting on the right side, and then I'm going to clip and do the left, turn this around, and do the same exact process for the other side. So I'll come back once I've done all 4. Okay, so I have just finished sewing all 4 sides. You can see that I brought it down to where those endpoints come, and it makes a really nice looking lining. Like, this is super clean looking inside. If you want to test, you have your recessed zipper. So I'm going to open that back up, and I'm just going to set the lining to the side because now we need our 2 main exteriors, and we are going to put them right sides together. So I'm lining up the bottom edge of the cork, and then I'm going to clip them, and I'm going to take them to the machine and sew them at the given seam allowance. And then once I'm done with that, I am going to butterfly the seam open. So they're clipped at the bottom here. Once I sew along the edge, then I'm going to butterfly them open and top stitch down each side. I'm going to do that both those steps at the same time at the machine. Okay, so now we're doing a couple different things. I have stitched these two main panels together and then top stitch down the side, or down the center on each side. I'm going to move it away for a second because now we need our bottom base. And so I have mine cut out, and then I have my stabilizer. I am using the foam, and I'm going to stick it with some double-sided tape. If you printed out the pattern pieces, you could use them to like find the exact centers. I used the measurements also because the pattern pieces on my printer were like off the pages. So I just used measurements. So what I did is I folded my stabilizer in half, both the short way and the long way, and I marked my centers on my base. And so I'm just going to find my center, and because I'm not using Decovil, I'm using the foam that's not fusible, I'm just going to use some double-sided tape to hold it into place. And that will hold my foam because I am also adding purse feet. And so the base stabilizer pattern piece shows you where to mark for that, but I don't have that, so I'm gonna have to use some measurements. So I have the little snips in the foam. I'm gonna make sure that they are lined up centered, and you could use like a straight edge or a ruler to do that. And then I'm also making sure that my pieces on the short edges are center. So I'm gonna use my ruler off camera to find the center and then stick this down. Okay, so off camera, I have centered this and stuck it down. I have also marked out 5 points for purse feet. You could use the pattern piece to find them. I just did the math and the measurements, and I'm going to show you how I install one. So I use a hand hole punch. You could use a press or whatever works best for you. And I have these purse feet that are screw in available in the shop. So starting from the back side, I'm putting the screw first, and you could put, normally if I didn't have foam or something, I would put like an extra piece of water resistant canvas or something to help cushion it. But because I'm using foam, there's like extra cushion. And if you have Loctite, again, you could put it in here so these don't come unscrewed. But I just get it started with my hand and then use my small screwdriver again and hold one side with my fingers and the other side with the screwdriver. So again, that one is in, and I'm going to repeat it for all of the other markings. I do a center one. You could use 4 if you want, but I just always use 5, and I'll come back for the next step once this is done. All right, so I have attached all my purse feet. The next step is we are taking our long edges only and folding it over the edge of our stabilizer. So if you are using like a Decovil light or something that is a little bit thinner, it might be slightly easier to fold it over. So I'm just gently folding it over onto the foam and clipping it. We are not going to top stitch this yet because this is how we are going to attach it to the bottom of the bag. So I'm going to do it for both sides, and I'll come back on for the next step. All right, so I have folded down both sides and I have it clipped. Now we need our main exterior again, and we are going to mark or line up our center mark of this base with the center of the seam and clip it into place. And then I just flipped it around so we can do the same exact thing on this side. And now that I have both of them marked, I actually noticed that it's you might not be able to see it on camera, but it looks a little bit crooked. So what I'm going to do is take it off, measure the sides, and make sure I have it folded straight. But once you have it straight, now you're going to take it to the machine and you're going to top stitch all the way around all 4 sides. So we are attaching that base to the exterior of our main linings. All right, so I have just top stitched this piece onto the bottom. I really like it because it adds that cushion, and from the inside it looks like this. So we are still going to need this piece, but we are also going to need the strap tabs. So I'm only doing handles, so I have 4. If you're doing the crossbody as well, you should have 6. And your rectangle rings, you could also use what's it called? D-rings as well. And I am going to mark the line on my main panels. It is on pattern piece 3, and I'll come back to show you how to attach our tabs. Okay, so off camera, I use my pattern piece 3 to mark some chalk lines on each. These might possibly be seen, so you definitely want to use a material that can be removed, or a marking pen that can be removed. So I did the chalk. Now these are going to fold over. Again, I've already edge coated these, or put the base coat on them, sorry, so that way they're not going to fray. So you want to pick the side that when you fold it you think looks the nicest. And so I am going to put a piece of double-sided tape on the back to help it stick, and so that way it doesn't move on me. Okay. And what we're doing is, my double-sided rings have a little, or square rings have a little cut, slice in between them. So I'm going to put that on the inside, and I put some Decovil on these just to make them sturdier, so it's not likely that they're going to tear. So I'm going to fold this in half, and I probably should have put, you know what, I could peel this off. I'm going to put the double-sided tape on the inside first. So I'm adding some double-sided tape to the back, and then I'm going to line up the top part with the marking on my main panel. And then I'm going to top stitch all the way around the edges, leaving my tails long so I can tie it at the back. Right, so I have just attached all 4 of my square rings for the handles on the sides and top stitched around, and I brought them all to the back and tied them. And I think that I am going to put a rivet in the center of each. So how I'm going to do that is I am going to use a ruler off camera, find the center, hole punch it, and then I have a rivet kit here from Amazon, and I'm going to use my cam sat press. You could use the hand tools, that works fine. I use that for a really long time, and I'm going to do all that off camera just because it's a little bit extra, not necessarily required. All right, so I have put the rivets through the holders here, and I just love how that looks with the one centered. So now I have my main panel open exactly like what we did with the lining, and I have my side panels of the exterior. And on the back, I have marked, it's a little hard to see, but with the silver marking pen, one mark on each side from the left and the right at the given measurement. And we're going to do the same exact method like what we did for the lining. So I'm lining up my center mark here with, if I flip this, there's like the center seam, I can see it. And so I am clipping that in place. And this is a little bit easier because we don't have the recessed zipper this time kind of holding the tops. So this is going to open up wide and you can clip them right on. And so again, we're going to take it to the machine. We're going to start at that first mark, backstitch, sew it at the given seam allowance, all the way down to that other mark. And I'm going to repeat for both sides. All right, so I have just attached the side panels on, And so now we're going to repeat the same steps like we did for the lining, matching up the top corners of the main and the side panel. And we're going to clip all the way down. And just like before, we're going to stitch at the given seam allowance until we get to that marking at the end here. All right, so we're on the last few steps. I just stitched up the sides. So now we need to turn our exterior so the right side is facing out. And this is good too because we're going to check to make sure that all our stitches look okay and that we caught everything. You want to make sure that you poke out your corners. And so on the bottom here, it has gotten close to that pocket, but you see a little bit of my lining, and that's okay. It's the way it is done is that way you're not sewing through as thick of a layer. What the part that I care about is that I caught those corners by going down to the line. So the outside looks pretty good, and I have to figure out what side I want as the front. I think I'm going to do this side because this parrot is so nicely centered. And so now we also need our lining. We're going to join them together. We're going to keep our lining wrong side facing out, and we need to make sure our zipper is open, and we are going to put our exterior inside of our interior lining. And if I want this the front, I'm going to make sure that I have it on this side because towards the back is my pocket, my slip pocket. So I want to make sure that I am lining up the correct sides. And if you mark center points on the linings and such, you can mark them or line them up first. I'm just going to start at the corners. What is important is that on these side gusset pieces, that they are facing towards the front or the back of the bag. So I'm nesting them, but the exterior is facing towards the front and the back. And that's going to help it so that way it doesn't turn or squish in on itself. And by after nesting these and clipping them, the centers should line up with no problem. So I'm going to finish clipping all the way around off camera, and I'll come back on to show you the next step. And you're going to clip all the way around the top. Okay, so now that I have done clipping all the way around, I am going to bring it to the machine and sew. In the pattern, she recommends doing a smaller stitch allowance or seam allowance at first and then the larger. I'm just going to do the larger one from the beginning. Okay, so I have stitched all the way around the top, and so now we are going to pull it through our lining and then tuck the lining in. So I'm going to do that in time lapse. Okay, so I have just turned it right side out, tucked the lining down inside. I didn't close up the lining yet because I stick my hand up inside and help poke out all the way around these along the top. So I have clipped it just because that helps me kind of fold it in place. So now I'm going to take it to the machine and I am going to top stitch all the way around the bag. Okay, so I've just top stitched all the way around. I'm really happy with how it looks. So now we can pull up our lining. If you have an exterior zipper pocket, you can close it through that. But since I did not put an exterior zipper, I am closing it through the bottom. So I am just kind of gently tugging it on each end so that way the seam allowance gets pulled down. And then I'm going to clip it all the way across and just top stitch it close at as close to the edge as possible. You could also hand sew it. I hate hand sewing, so I just stitch it. And honestly, they have the recessed zipper, so you're not even gonna really notice this at all. Okay, so I have just stitched the lining closed and tucked it in. I'm so excited with how it looks. And then that's what it looks like with the recessed zipper. So all we have now is our handles. So I'm going to set that to the side and grab my handle pieces. Okay, so I have my handle pieces. I have drawn my center line down the cork, and I'm going to put double-sided tape down each side and fold it to the center. And then off camera, I'm going to take my iron and press my lining in half, and then do the same thing. Press each side to the center. And that's just easier for me to do it that way because it's not like converting from the centimeters to inches. It's not like an easy measurement to find the center here. So I'm going to come back once I have both of these pressed both to the center like this. And the same thing with the cork. Okay, so I am sticking these so they are wrong sides together. I'm going to sew the short ends, and then I'm going to come back and I'm flipping them. So now the openings are wrong sides together, and I'm going to top stitch up and down each side at the given seam allowance. Okay, so I have just completed my straps. I did do 2 rows of top stitching, one a little bit further in, because I didn't really take my time to center these. And on one of them, I did not catch the edge with just the outside top stitching. So I did two rows. So now we're going to take our purse and we are going to attach the handles. So we are going to pull them up through and fold it back on itself. So you can measure how much you want. I'm going to do 2 things. You could stitch across this. I am going to use rivets, and I'm also leaving enough room that I could put the end cap on. So I'm pulling it through a little bit more.
Yep.
But I'm going to make sure that they're even on both sides. And again, I'm going to attach it with rivets, and I'll come back to show you the end result. Okay, so I just added my rivets, and I think it looks great, except my end caps do not fit. So I'm just cutting off the edge so that they will fit on. And then I use my magnetic screwdriver the same way we did with the zipper tab. My only thing is now it's a little bit close to the rivet, but that's okay. I'd rather have these on to have that nice finished look. All right, so I have just finished adding the strap ends. Especially on this one's a little close to the rivet. When it's on, like you're holding it on your shoulder or your arm, you're not going to notice it from that side. I think the only thing I would do different about this bag is these handles next time. But other than that, I really, really love it. The look inside. And the lining fits super nice. Where it is a little bit baggy is only because I used foam, so it's a little bit thicker. If you use Decoville, it'll be like a perfect fit. You have the slip pocket. So I'm so happy with how it came out. I love that I did the cotton with the cork, and I'll definitely be making more of these. Okay, so we have just finished up our chameleon bag. Thank you so much, Lisa. I absolutely love your pattern. I cannot wait to make more. I hope you all found the tutorial helpful. If you do, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe to my channel. Let me know in the comments if you make one. And I hope you're enjoying all the rest of the videos today. I'll have them linked below. So enjoy it and see you next time. Bye.